You're watching News at Prime. Let's get into another important discussion now. Medical students raising concerns about the National Student Financial Aid Scheme funding. The South African Medical Students Union says people are underfunded, or rather people are funded for 10 months while they are expected to attend classes for the whole year. Let's discuss this now and the impact it has had specifically on medical students, and we're joined by Thato Maseko. He is the president of this particular union for medical students. We also have NSFAS spokesperson, Mr. Ishmael Mnisi, who is with us in studio as well. Gentlemen, to both of you, thank you very much for your time. Can I start with you, Mr. Maseko, and understand the issues here? It's quite clear in that introduction that 10 months that you are funded in a year, who's going to cover the rest of the funding? But is that where the problem ends?
Yeah, look, and thanks and thank you for having us. Look, the problem starts with the 10 month, you know. And I think we've mentioned it time and again that we are expected to be on campuses as early as the 6th of January, literally after New Year, sometimes on the 3rd, sometimes on the 4th. For all these times, NSFAS starts giving money to institutions somewhere around March, first allowance around March, and in all the times that the months are left outside, students are expected to be studying, students are expected to be writing exams, and not that they've shown an element of care, it's business as usual for them. You know, and students are hungry. Students cannot stop writing exams on the basis that there is no money. Life continues. Lecturers expect you to be in classes doing what you're expected to do, as in like everything is normal. And moreover, and across board is that we know that NSFAS funds the poor of the poorest in the country. Yeah. Once you are a SASSA beneficiary, you're automatically an NSFAS recipient. With that being mentioned, it means that we know for a fact that these students in particular do not even have money, sometimes even to move from one location to the other. There are extreme measures that they have to take in order for them to get to campuses, number one. Number two, for those particular students who are affected, for them to get money to start a new year, which at most of the time is extremely, you know, dangerous on the basis that you have to learn a new course. Yeah. And once you start doing all of that, then you have your situation all frustrated. And I think those are some of the issues that we have, and we've raised them on multiple occasions. But what I think is that in medical students in particular, we are a little bit of a drop in a pool of ocean that NSFAS has. In as far as it has, it funds a lot of students. It funds a lot in particular, and of course a smaller group. So most of the time will just become a tick box in their passing by. But we are now saying we're tired of lip service, where most of the time they will just speak that they are funding students, but students are tired and hungry of all the unmet promises of being funded, and that is where I think we will start the discussion.
All right. We're also joined by Ambrose, Lekalakala. You also part of the student union. He's already said a mouthful about what the challenges are. Is there anything that stands out for you that the gentleman from NSFAS needs to address and put on the table with his seniors about what is this crisis about exactly?
No, thank you very much, and greetings to everyone. Well, the issue of NSFAS, it's very clear. Like, our call is to have allowance in January and in December. Right. This is because, for an example, I can tell you that the healthcare system, since the inception of human into this world, has only undergone two transformations. Number one is provision of clean water, sanitation and sewage drain system. Number two is epidemiology and vaccination. But this is not the reality when it comes to medical students. You have got a female child who's in school from as early as the 3rd of January. This female, how did they buy sanitary towels? because that is what we are calling for, to say, let us have an immediate solution. However, we have tried to have an engagement with NSFAS, and then they have expressed it to us that they are willing to resolve it. However, they've said that is a matter that may need those above them.
Okay.
So, yes.
All right. So the man who speaks for NSFAS is here with us, and he's perhaps going to tell us about what the men or the people above them are going to say about this. First, let's understand the logic behind funding the students for 10 months. What about the rest of the year or the rest of the months that are left?
Well, thank you very much, Xoli, for that question and the well-spoken statements from the President and the SG. We met the students, Xoli, about on the 11th of November, following a letter that was sent by the students to the NSFAS leadership. Now, the understanding of NSFAS of the problem, and we have clearly expressed it to them, that firstly, we appreciate the concerns that they have. Now, as NSFAS being their step-parents, because we have taken responsibility of all the students that we are funding for, including them, with one understanding in mind, that they need to academically perform. And that's where we want our students to focus their attention at. That's number one. We said we hear what they are saying, and we made certain proposals that will go into depth very soon. But we pointed out some role players in the process, that this is not only an NSFAS problem. It is an institutional-based problem, which involves the very same universities that they are, the dean of their students, who are in the main responsible for their program. We don't design how universities' programmers look like, whether 12 months, 10 months, and so on. And in our engagements with institutions, even how we came up with the 10-month spread of our allowances, it was informed by decisions which were taken at various levels. And that's what we said to them.
Okay. That
following this meeting we had with them, there are certain things that we promised them. But we said, when we look at the 10 months versus the 12 months process, we need to speak to the vice chancellors who have an organization called USAF. We need to engage the Department of Higher Education and Training to look at how the allowances are provided for in terms of their equilibrium, because we need to concur with the minister. But beyond that, we also need to go to the Ministry of Finance, who also looks at the broader appropriation of money that gets given to NSFAS. Okay. However, we acknowledged that there is something that needs to be looked at.
Okay, I'm still not answered as to what the logic behind the 10 months, what then happens to the rest of the months. You want to come in?
No, look, thanks, Kole. In fact, I want to speak in particular around engagements, rather. You see, there seems to be people engaging on issues that are not there. There is one issue on the table, and there seem to be a lot of stakeholders. This thing is simple. When are students on campus? Students are on campus from January to the first week of December or second at most. Then what is difficult about that? Why should people need to sit down to want to try to create an issue where it's not there?
Okay, all right, let me stop you there and have Mr. Mnisi respond. How do you respond?
Okay, maybe just quickly, Xoli, I thought I was responding to the 10-month thing, that the programs are designed at an institutional level. Now, our policy gets canvassed at that level, where we were informed by the very institutions that their program, academic program, starts at a particular time, it ends at a particular time. And then when we do our allowances, we calculate. For an example, we would say for NSFAS gives, say, 1,500 a month for a student, and we spread it, that amount, into 10 months. Then we start with those appropriations, and at a particular quantum. Now, we made a proposal to them. Now that's what actually happens when we decide.
Okay.
But we don't on our own decide that it's going to be 9 months.
Right.
No. It's that conversation that takes place there with institutions. And there is a body that is called the South African Union of Students. It's another institution that represents students, which medical students also must belong there. Unfortunately, we don't discuss those with individual formations of students in institutions, because you'll have medical students, you've got other sectors formed of students and so on. But we discuss at that level. They would go to their constituencies, which includes medical students, and where they need to raise that.
Right.
By the way, Claudia, we also do it with TVET colleges, which theirs is different because of their own trimester and semester. So their allowances are paid differently.
All right. I think Mr. Mnisi has addressed this matter, that this is the design of the institutions, the medical institutions, and they merely following that. Your response?
My point is we need to understand that, like for an example, SAMSU was launched on the 3rd of August, and the Minister of Health, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, was there convincing us to agree with NHI, which we agree to. But NHI says to each according to each need, and from each according to each ability. It doesn't apply to us, because if you are saying to each according to each need, and yet other students are there for 10 months or are there for 12 months, you still give us the same money. There's no consistency. And we view NSFAS and all of the departments and all of that as government. We are saying, please, government, engage one another and bring about immediate solution. Because I'm telling you now, students do not have allowance. They have nothing now, because since January the 3rd, they've been there making loans and all of that. When the money of NSFAS comes, which comes usually in the beginning of March, yes, you start paying all the loans you have been taking. Now you have nothing.
Understood. Mr. Mnisi, I have less than 1.5 minutes. You have spoken about proposals, certain things promised.
Yeah.
What are those? Very briefly.
What we have said to them in our meeting, that and which is what we have been doing all along. NSFAS has been giving universities upfront payments every year without fail. In January, we give them billions to offer all NSFAS beneficiaries, including medical students. In our letter to universities, we do indicate that this money must also go to the medical students. The difference is that, and which is the argument that they made 2 weeks ago, that they get this money late, which when we send it in January, our understanding is that institutions appropriate that money instantly.
So who's meant to follow up and monitor the institutions?
Well, that's one issue, because we hold institutions accountable. Every month we say, give us the spreadsheet of who you paid for and so on and so forth. But we said to them...
I have to allow...
Yeah, we said to them, just only to help and put it that very clear. We said this year, acknowledging that there is this problem, we are approving upfront payment earlier, now in December, so that come beginning of January, that money would have been with institutions. So we expect no institution to say the money came in on the 13th of January, then we'll appropriate it month end January. But if it goes now, they will have it, and we think partly will solve the problem. The one problem which we did not solve is the December one, because of it then calls for an additional allowance, which we said we then must engage broader, because of there is more money that we might need.
Thato, quickly, have they responded to your cries?
No. They have not. In fact, I want to speak about, you say you have sent institutions money in January, while students are supposed to have moved in January. You see, that is a shortfall. If you send people money on the 30th of January, that means they should have been there on the 6th. What have they used? Can they fly? You can't fly using a broom. You have to use a taxi. There are much more other issues to be used to get to institutions. That is a shortfall. And accountability. You account for money that is starting to be distributed end of February, which is March. Then what happens to the other months? When a student fails, NSFAS change used to be 2 years. Now, if a student fails once, you are off the funding period, and there is N+1, no longer N+2.
So you have to perform.
You have to perform.
All right.
The conditions are not...
Let's close this, gentlemen.
Correct.
Let's close this. Mr. Mnisi, students have to perform, and they can't do that on empty stomachs. There are other issues around sanitary towels for those that go through that cycle. You have to be fair on students? Are you being fair?
Only the issue of policy, you've asked the first question, what does the policy say, what informs 10 months? I've answered that. And then we said to them, again, we are going to look at that and engage the very same people that they are saying we must not engage or we engage them late. NSFAS has to engage because it is important for us to appropriate that money in accordance to the rules that were given. We are not making laws, it's the department, and then we are simply implementing. Now, we said we are parents, and we understand where they come from, and that's why we are willing to engage. Let me tell you, Koli, the advance money that we sent, it is actually money not even budgeted in the previous year. We make a concession as NSFAS and send that money in advance just to cover this. But we've made that commitment that come this year, we'll send it now in December, hold institution to account that come January, they distribute this money accordingly. They must not wait for March, April, like it has been the case in certain instances.
All right, gentlemen, I can see, Ambrose, you also want to come in. Time, unfortunately, simply does not allow. But I can promise you one thing. We are going to reconvene this, and let's reconvene it in January. Does that sound fair to everyone?
Yeah.
I think it sounds fair, because come January, if there is a crisis, he says monies have been sent in December so that January is taken care of when students come on campus. So let's monitor. I can't allow any more time.